be hard for us to shake off our own cultural ideas and expectations when we're reading a medieval text like the Four Branches of the Mabinogi. I'm going to tell you about 3 things which I notice that people don't quite get. These concern everyday things like getting married and raising children, and also what happened to people who committed crimes. You'll have to wait to the end to find out what happened to adulterers. I think you might see some things in the Mabinogi in a different light after this. If you want to learn more about Celtic mythology and deities, you'll find lots to read on my blog and on my Patreon page, or right here on my YouTube channel. A lot of couples get married in the Mabinogi, but you won't see any description of what the bride wore for the ceremony. That's because there was no ceremony as we understand it. Marriage was considered a legal contract, but not a sacrament. Not a sacrament of the Christian Church, and not any earlier set of pre-Christian beliefs as far as we know. A little bit later in the medieval period, things changed, and people started to get married in a church or by a priest. Our whole idea of the bride wearing a flower crown and being handfasted by a druid in a woodland glade, that's something modern culture has reverse engineered because we find it hard to picture a marriage beginning in any other way. In medieval Wales, the bride and groom's families simply agreed a contract, and that contract was sealed by holding a feast and by the couple having sex. Alone, if they were lucky. This is always referred to in the Mabinogi as sleeping together. This next one is even harder for modern people to imagine. Members of the nobility didn't raise their own children. Infants were handed over to a wet nurse right away, and sons in particular, but sometimes daughters too, were sent to be fostered with other families. This practice isn't as clearly documented in Wales as it is in Ireland, but we know it happened a lot. And it is mentioned toward the end of the first branch when Rhiannon's missing son is returned to her. They immediately start making plans to have him fostered out. The idea was that this created bonds between great families and gave the child a ready-made network of friends, a bit like wealthy people sending their children to boarding school in the modern era. Our ideas of nuclear families raising children under their own roof seem so normal to us that it's hard to imagine another way. And it creates very close parent-child bonds, which just didn't exist in the same way among the medieval nobility of Wales. How women felt about this isn't entirely clear. It's easy to imagine that they would have been heartbroken, but maybe not, since they were raised within that system and they were fully prepared. Justice also worked very differently than it does today. The traditional legal system, known as the laws of Hwyl after the king who is credited with having them recorded, was mostly based on compensation, not punishment. If you injured or even killed someone, you weren't put in prison, but you had to pay compensation to them, or to their family if they were dead. How much you had to pay depended on the status of the injured party. Killing a king was very expensive, but theoretically you couldn't be hanged for it. You could be hanged for a few types of theft, but you were more likely to get your hand chopped off. Yet, if you were known to be hungry, you couldn't be punished for stealing food. Adultery was also dealt with by compensation, and after 3 times it was grounds for divorce. Both women and men had some rights in this, but men had far greater rights than women. This is why at the end of the 4th branch, Gronu expects to pay lle compensation for sleeping with Blodeuwedd. It's easy to imagine that we know what characters in stories are thinking and feeling. It's natural to think that they had the same expectations that we have. But as they say, the past is another country. It's actually really easy to get things wrong when reading stories that are 1,000 years old.